All right, so let's dive into something I think we all have a little experience with,
Mhm.
building teams,
Yeah,
teams that really rock.
absolutely
The
right.
kind where, everyone's on the same page, ideas are just, flowing and you're getting things done.
Yeah.
And for this deep dive, we're going to be looking at a 2011 article by Robert Levasseur from the journal Interfaces. And the article is called People Skills: Optimizing Team Development and Performance.
It's a good one.
I think you're going to find it super relevant.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is something that I think we can all relate to.
For sure.
I mean, who hasn't been part of a team?
Exactly.
Whether it's at work, a volunteer organization, sports, you name it. Yeah.
And, we all know how great it feels
Oh, yeah.
when you're on a team that just clicks.
Absolutely. It's magic.
But, what does it really take to make that happen?
Right.
Is it just about, picking the right people, or is there more to it? And I think that's what's so cool about Levasseur's article is he really breaks it down.
Yeah, he does.
He gives us some concrete strategies.
Yeah, and he starts right off the bat talking about Tuckman's model of group development.
Yes.
Which, if you've ever been in like a, team building workshop or anything,
Okay, yeah.
you've probably heard of forming, storming, norming, performing.
Classic.
But Levasseur doesn't just sort of, rehash the basics.
Right.
He uses it as a framework for really understanding,
How conflict emerges.
yeah, and how to manage it effectively.
Because that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
You think about those stages,
Yeah.
and that storming phase
Oh, yeah.
can be a little dicey.
It can be brutal.
It can make or break a team.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And he argues that, getting through that storm is actually essential
Oh, yeah.
for a team to reach its full potential.
It's like that analogy of a rocket launch.
Oh, I like that.
You got to get through that initial turbulence
Yeah.
to reach orbit, to reach high performance.
You got to break through the atmosphere
Exactly.
to get to space.
So how do we do that? How do we navigate that storm effectively?
Well, Levasseur says that understanding conflict and not shying away from it
Okay.
is crucial.
Not avoiding it?
Not avoiding it.
Interesting.
In fact, he says that avoiding conflict is a hallmark of low-performing teams.
Really?
Yeah, it's like they're so focused on keeping things harmonious
Right.
that they never actually reach their full potential.
It's like they're playing it too safe.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they're not pushing the boundary.
They're not challenging the status quo.
So conflict can actually be a good thing.
Well, it depends on the type of conflict.
Okay, so there's different types.
Yeah, and this is where Levasseur gets into the nuances.
Okay.
He talks about task conflict versus relationship conflict.
Okay, interesting.
So task conflict is about disagreeing over ideas or approaches,
Okay.
which can actually be really productive when it's managed well.
Like a healthy debate
Exactly.
where you're challenging each other's assumptions.
Sparking creativity.
Right,
You're
yeah.
coming up with better solutions.
But relationship conflict.
That's the interpersonal stuff.
Okay.
That's when things get personal, and that can be really destructive.
Yeah, they can derail a team pretty quickly.
Absolutely.
And Levasseur doesn't just, throw these ideas out there.
Right.
He actually points to research that backs this up.
Yeah, he cites studies by Jen and Mannix back in 2001
Okay.
that showed that successful teams keep relationship conflict low.
Throughout a project.
Yeah, but they actually have moderate levels of task conflict,
It's-
particularly in the middle stages of a project.
So it's not about avoiding conflict altogether
No, it's about understanding which types of conflict are healthy.
and how to channel them effectively.
Exactly.
Which brings us to Levasseur's 7 key strategies for optimizing group performance.
This is where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah. I got to say, some of these were real aha moments for me.
Yeah, they're super practical.
The first one is so simple, yet I think so often overlooked.
Okay, what is it?
Focus on both task work and teamwork.
Oh, yeah.
Like he compares it to a car needing both an engine and wheels to function properly.
Right, you need both the drive to get things done
Uh-huh.
and the support of strong relationships.
It's like a recipe for success.
Absolutely.
That clear focus on the work itself,
Yep,
combined with that genuine sense of camaraderie and support.
I love that.
And to build that supportive structure, Levasseur is a big proponent of establishing ground rules.
Oh, yeah, ground rules are key.
And not just those generic, corporate ones.
Right.
But rules that the team creates together.
Yeah, reflecting their values and working styles.
It's like setting the rules of the game
Absolutely.
so that everyone's on the same page from the start.
It minimizes those unnecessary conflicts
Yeah.
when expectations aren't clear.
And speaking of being on the same page, Levasseur's third strategy is all about developing a shared vision.
Oh, that's a good one.
And he emphasizes that it's more than just having a common goal.
Right. It's got to be more than that.
It's about creating a vivid picture
Yeah.
of what success looks like.
And why it matters
Yes.
to each individual on the team.
It's that emotional connection to the why
Yeah.
that fuels that
That
motivation.
drives performance.
Okay, so we've got the engine,
Okay.
we've got the wheels, we've got the map,
I'm following you.
but how do we actually get this car moving?
Okay, I like where this is going.
Levasseur argues that collaborative processes are key,
Oh, for sure.
and this was backed up by tons of research showing that teams who work together throughout the process are more productive
More innovative.
and come up with more innovative solutions.
Yeah, when you have all those minds working together,
Yes.
bouncing ideas off each other,
They flame match.
you tap into a wider range of perspectives.
Absolutely.
Knowledge.
And that leads to his next strategy, which is what he calls action research.
Oh, yeah.
It's all about encouraging a culture of continuous improvement.
So they're constantly learning,
Yeah, they're gathering feedback,
analyzing
what's working, what's not,
and adapting.
and
And
adapting.
it's running experiments.
It's a very dynamic approach.
It is.
Now, we already touched on the importance of managing conflict effectively, which is his sixth strategy. And we're definitely going to be diving deeper into that later on.
Okay.
But first, I want to talk about his last strategy, which I think is super interesting, involving the end user.
Bringing in the customer.
Yeah, this is where it gets really exciting.
Yeah.
Imagine a team that's not just working in a vacuum,
Right.
but they're actively seeking input.
From the people who are actually going to use their product or service.
Yeah, they're getting that real world feedback from the start.
Which helps them create something that's actually relevant and valuable
It's about making sure that the team's efforts are aligned
with the need.
with the needs and expectations of the end user.
It's powerful stuff
It is.
when you think about it.
So we've got a lot to unpack here.
We do.
We've touched on all 7 of Levasseur's key strategies,
It's a lot to digest.
but there's so much more to explore. What do you say we shift gears now and delve deeper into this fascinating world of conflict management?
I'm game. Let's do it.
All right, stay tuned as we unpack Levasseur's insights on turning conflict from a roadblock into a stepping stone for team growth and high performance.
I love it. From roadblock to stepping stone.
It's all about perspective, right?
Absolutely. So, Levasseur, he really shines a light on this idea that conflict, something that most people try to avoid,
All right.
can actually be an asset to a team.
Yeah, I love how he frames it.
How does he frame it?
Well, he actually compares it to Tuckman's stages of group development. Remember how we talk about that storming phase where things can get a little messy?
Yeah.
He's basically saying that teams that try to sidestep that stage,
Okay.
they often end up stuck in a rut.
They never reach their full potential.
It's like they're trying to build a house without laying a proper foundation.
Oh, I like that analogy.
You might get something standing up,
Yeah.
but it's not going to be nearly as strong or as stable.
Right.
So how do we embrace the storm, so to speak?
That's the question, isn't it?
How do we manage conflict effectively?
Without letting it, tear the team apart.
Right.
Well, Levasseur argues that the key is understanding the root cause of the conflict.
Okay.
He breaks it down into 3 primary sources.
Okay.
And I think you'll find these resonate with your own experiences. The first is what he calls the natural evolution of the group.
So this is about those growing pains that teams experience as they move through those stages of development.
Exactly. Like a common conflict arises when a team transitions from being heavily reliant on the leader
Okay.
to becoming more self-directed.
So there might be power struggles.
Yeah, or disagreements about how decisions should be made.
As the team is trying to find its own footing.
Exactly. It's like, think about it like a teenager learning to become independent.
Oh, yeah.
There are going to be bumps along the way.
Some growing pains
But it's ultimately a positive step.
towards maturity.
Right. So encouraging the team to work collaboratively through this transition
Okay. Rather than fearing it.
can make all the difference.
Absolutely.
So it's about reframing that conflict as a natural part of the team's growth
Exactly.
rather than a sign that something's wrong.
Now, the second source of conflict that Levasseur highlights is differences in personality types.
Oh, yeah. We've all experienced that.
I mean, you got your extroverts, your introverts, your big picture thinkers, your detail-oriented folks.
Sometimes those differences can really create friction.
Absolutely. And Levasseur specifically points to potential clashes between those who are quick decision makers and those who prefer a more deliberate analytical approach.
I can see how that would create tension.
Especially when you're, up against deadlines.
Right.
So what does Levasseur suggest?
Well, I'm curious to hear what he has to say.
He suggests establishing ground rules
Okay.
that ensure everyone's voice is heard.
Regardless of their personality type.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So maybe you have a rule that everyone gets a chance to share their thoughts.
Before a decision is made.
Or you create space for both brainstorming and more structured analysis.
It's about finding that balance.
That works for everyone.
Right, because different perspectives are valuable,
And creating that culture of respect.
where everyone feels comfortable contributing.
Okay, so what about those situations where you have someone who's intentionally trying to disrupt the team?
Ah, yes. Lavasseur calls these disruptive people.
I gotta say, this one hits a little close to home.
I know what you mean. We've all encountered those individuals who just seem to thrive on conflict.
Yeah, maybe they come in with preconceived ideas, they resist collaboration, or they just generally seem intent on stirring up trouble.
But Lavasseur, he offers some really smart advice for dealing with these situations.
Okay, I'm all ears.
He actually cautions against engaging in a one-on-one confrontation.
With the disruptive person.
Yeah, instead he recommends involving the entire team
Oh, interesting.
in addressing the issue.
So it's like using the power of the group to hold that individual accountable.
Exactly. Like, he suggests asking the team directly.
Do we agree with these criticisms?
Yeah, and if they do, then you can have a productive group discussion to address those concerns.
What?
But if the team recognizes that the behavior is disruptive and not beneficial, then they can collectively develop ground rules.
That specifically address that kind of conduct.
Exactly.
Such a clever approach.
It is.
It shifts the focus from a personal battle to a team effort.
To maintain that positive and productive work environment.
And if despite the team's efforts, the disruptive behavior continues.
Well, Lavasseur suggests that the team might need to consider removing that individual from the group.
Wow, that's a tough call.
It is, but in some cases it might be necessary.
To protect the team's overall well-being and progress.
Right. It highlights how important it is to take conflict seriously.
And not let it fester.
But it's also important to remember that managing conflict isn't a one-time fix.
It's an ongoing process.
It's about creating that culture of open communication,
And constructive feedback.
where team members feel comfortable voicing concerns and working through disagreements together.
So we've talked a lot about the challenges of conflict.
Yeah,
But Lavasseur also highlights some of its positive aspects.
absolutely. Think of it like this pressure creates diamonds.
Ooh, I like that.
Sometimes those moments of friction can actually lead to incredible breakthroughs.
It's like when you're struggling with a puzzle and you finally figure out where that one tricky piece fits.
And suddenly the whole picture becomes clearer.
Exactly.
Lavasseur argues that conflict can force you to challenge your assumptions
Explore new possibilities.
and ultimately come up with more creative and effective solutions.
It can also strengthen team bonds.
Well, for sure.
When you successfully navigate a disagreement together,
It builds trust.
it builds respect
It's like going through a challenging experience together.
and coming out stronger on the other side.
You know, it's interesting how Lavasseur connects these insights on conflict management.
Yeah.
Back to those 7 key strategies we discussed earlier.
Right. It's like they all work together to create this ecosystem of high performance.
Exactly. So let's recap those strategies again just to make sure they're fresh in everyone's mind.
Okay.
First, we have focusing on both the task work and teamwork.
You need that balance.
You need that balance of getting things done and nurturing those relationships.
Then there's the importance of creating ground rules from the get-go
Setting those clear expectations
for how the team will interact.
and work together.
And of course, developing that shared vision
That picture of success.
that everyone's excited about and working toward.
And don't forget, collaborative processes.
Leveraging those diverse perspectives.
And skills of the team by involving everyone in the decision making.
We also talked about action research,
That continuous improvement mindset.
where the team is constantly learning and adapting,
And then there's managing conflict effectively.
which we just spent some time unpacking.
And finally, involving the end user,
Making sure the team's work is truly relevant and valuable.
to those who will ultimately be using it.
It's like a checklist for building a high-performing team.
It is. And the beauty of Lavasseur's approach is that it's adaptable.
To any team,
Whether you're in a corporate setting, a nonprofit,
even just a group of friends working on a project together,
these are universal principles.
that can help any team function more effectively.
Yeah, and achieve incredible things. You know, as we're wrapping up this discussion on Lavasseur's work, there's one final thought I wanted to share.
Oh, I'm intrigued. What's that?
Lavasseur ends his article with a powerful call to action.
Okay.
He urges leaders to take these proven methods and actually apply them.
To really guide their teams towards high performance.
He's not just presenting theory.
He's challenging us to put these ideas into practice.
And make a real difference.
I love that.
And I think that's a perfect segue into our final thoughts for this deep dive.
So, as we've been talking about all this, I've been thinking about, how it's not just about like the structure and the processes.
Right.
It's really about the people.
It's about the human element.
Yeah. And creating a culture where people, feel valued.
Respected.
Empowered.
Yeah, where they can thrive.
Like, think about the best teams you've ever been on.
Mm-hmm.
What made them so successful?
It wasn't just because everyone had the right, technical skills.
Right. It was something more than that.
It was that sense of camaraderie,
Yeah.
that mutual respect.
This shared commitment to excellence.
And that's something we can all cultivate in our own teams.
Absolutely.
Whether we're leading them or just, contributing as a member.
So Lavasseur gives us, this roadmap.
A blueprint.
For how to create that foundation of trust.
Open communication.
That allows teams to really reach their full potential.
Yeah.
Now, before we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
I wanted to leave you with something to ponder.
Okay.
We've been talking about teams in a general sense, but I was thinking, how might these principles apply to different types of teams?
That's a great question.
Like a surgical team obviously has different dynamics
Very different.
than, say, a marketing team or a research team.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
Think about the teams you're a part of. What are their unique strengths?
Their challenges.
How might you tailor Lavasseur's strategies to optimize your team's performance?
In your specific context.
For example, a team working in a high-pressure environment might need to really, double down on clear communication.
Quick decision-making.
While a team focused on innovation might benefit from a more, experimental and risk-taking culture.
It's all about adapting these principles
to fit the unique needs of your team.
And if you're, eager to dive deeper into Lavasseur's work,
Yeah.
I highly recommend checking out the full article. It's packed with even more insights and practical advice.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the world of high-performing teams.
It's been a great conversation.
I hope you found it as insightful and as inspiring as I did.
I know I have.
It's really got me thinking about how I can, step up my own game.
Me too.
When it comes to teamwork.
And remember, building a high-performing team is a journey, not a destination.
It's an ongoing process.
So keep learning, keep growing, and keep striving.
And create teams that truly excel.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
And until next time.
Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the things that matter most.